Hi, I'm Julia. Welcome to the Writer's Room again. Today I have part 2 of A Wayward Guest. If you remember, last week I read you the first part where there is an old inn that is a preparatory school, is my mother's story, and she leads us through the first couple of weeks there and what she hears in the third floor attic above her. Here goes the second part of A Wayward Guest. The door is open and my daring exploring set to begin. I hesitate for a moment, dismiss my fear, and ascend the steep captain's ship stairs, I believe they're called. Narrow at the step and tight as a drum. I stood in absolute awe at the top of the floor before me. I stood there for several minutes, unsure if I should turn and go back. My eyes scanned the distance from side to side through its tunnel-like hall, with doors that must lead into rooms on both sides. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. All appears dark and gray, with barely a sliver of light across the floor from a window somewhere here. I decided I have to move from my spot. My breathing is slow, and my heart is quick as I start to walk slowly, almost on tiptoes in my brown leather penny loafers against the dry, wide wood plank floors. My eyes open wider as I take in the scene before me. Should I keep going, I think to myself? Yes, but don't dawdle. I approach the first room and find myself inside. There, I said. That's not so bad. Relax. My heart stopped racing a bit as I looked around in a small room. Odd old things were spaced sparingly apart, with a few pieces of very old furniture. It looked as though someone had lived there, but had left everything as it was back in time. I moved on to another tiny, narrow hall, to another room, where I find the door half open. Within the room, it leads elsewhere, somewhere else. And yet, to another hallway it does. I looked for a light switch, but there were none and no lamps. I went back into the hallway to possibly venture further. I became aware that my nerve is waning as my blood is pumping through my every vein, hard and fast. I stand facing toward the other rooms ahead, but I can't seem to make out where they end. It looks to be a short distance at the start. Maybe there's a door down to the end of it, with the turns to the left and then to the right, and then into a very long hallway. I start to walk to the next room, the next place. But suddenly, everything appears very far away, and the walls seem to be moving like one breathing in and out. Now, I'm really trying to push myself to go on. One step, then another. But are my feet really moving? I look down. I'm standing where I was. Now, what I ask myself is, should I go? Then I hear a slightly distant sound, a kind of rustling sound, I think. It must be from behind me, because I see nothing in front of me. So I look around behind me. Nothing there. I hear it again. This time it's so close it feels like it went right through me. At that moment, the whole place feels cold. So cold, I feel like I just stepped inside a walk-in freezer. I hear a woman's voice, sighing. Not a sad sigh, but a disgusted sigh. Okay, whatever is going on, it isn't supposed to be happening, so I'm out of here. I felt as though I levitated off the floor with a single twist in midair and shot as an arrow would down the hallway, to the stairs and down them in a flash. I slammed the door behind me as I kept running. Now I find myself on the second floor. When I finally enter back into the reality of where I was here, I shook from my head to my toes. I said to myself, I only imagined all of that. It never happened. Better to forget it. Incredibly, I managed to do that for as long as I had. That year, back in 1965, at the Mount Everett Preparatory School for Girls in South Egremont, Massachusetts. I wished for many things in my life to distract me from my unwanted memories, as it turned out. What I remembered all these years later, and it's been over 55, was that not one student that lived there with me at that old inn ever admitted that she had been up there on the 3rd floor. I never told anyone my story of the hidden lady, the wayward guest. Now that I know far into my adult life that other people share stories like mine, of like occurrence, in a way, I was relieved to know what happened to me wasn't my mind playing a trick on me. Some who are sensitive souls, this story is as real as the sound of the wind. I hope you really like that. I really like that second part of it too. Again, my mother wrote this in its entirety, and I just added in here and there because it was like one of the best ghost stories I've ever known about. That's the old inn. It was built in 1786 as basically like a one-room house, and then was added on to over the years, but it survived until 2006, burned to the ground. It has been rebuilt. It is called now the Egremont Inn, I believe. But if you want to fact check any of this, you can look it up. The school was only operated in 1965 for a small group of girls. My mother was one of them. And she was one of the last of 10. Once they were all sent home, the semester ended. It never reopened as a school again. And I think it sat empty for quite a few years, maybe decades, before someone bought it and remodeled it, made it really nice, turned it into an inn, then it burned it down. I think there's something else that I did fact check this myself too. I found some old newspaper articles, the Berkshire Eagle, which is located in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, to give it some historical significance. It really was a crucial part of the town. Mount Everett is there. It's part of the Appalachian Mountains, or the Berkshire Mountains. My husband and I actually hiked over Mount Everett in 2015 on our way to Lee, Massachusetts, or Beckett, and it's a beautiful place. Thank you for listening today. I'd like to wish you, well, first I'd like to say thanks for subscribing to me, and if you have any questions, please send them our way. I would be happy to answer them. And with that, I'll wish you good thoughts, good words, and good deeds.